It has been officially revealed that Negan will be getting his own one-off comic issue. After nearly a year since the main comic series finished, we are now jumping back in with Negan. The cover shows a classically smiling Negan, wearing his leather jacket, and the title being revealed as Negan Lives. The letter G in Negan cleverly showing off the shape of Lucille, Negan's iconic bat. Not only does this issue promise to give us another look into the Walking Dead's comic universe, but it also promises to give us the fate of Negan. We will be seeing how Negan's story ends, so in today's video let's talk about what that ending will actually be. Let's theorize on the fate of Negan. So this to me is more exciting than most things we could hear about the season 10 finale at this point for the main show, because this promises to show us what story there is left after the main story finishes. When Scott Gimple said that the main story for the main show would go on past the comic storyline, we didn't really know what that would mean. This could likely give us an insight to what that actually is. Even if it is just showing us what happens when Negan is missing in the comics, it's still more story that the show could do after it does reach that point. And of course, just hearing that this comic will show us Negan's fate, that's actually the selling point for it. There's a lot to talk about, especially when Robert Kirkman actually said when he was going to kill Negan towards the end of the comics anyway. Back when the Walking Dead comics actually ended, we got signs that Negan was going to return in some way, shape or form, and this is it. And may I remind you, with the comics actually being finished, they've got nothing to lose with this character. He will have a fitting end and the story won't lack his presence after. Think about what Rick Grimes did throughout the comic series and how it ended for him. Now think about what Negan did and the crimes that he has not paid for. I think there's an element of karma in Negan's story. Let's get into it, but of course, before we do, if you're watching this video right now, then make sure you subscribe, or you're like Nicholas. And if you want to have a further discussion, then make sure you join the Discord. You can post your own theories, you can get it seen, you might be onto something. So let's first pay attention to the cover. It's Negan's classic look, and they've even included Lucille as a decal in the letter G. We could pay attention to the colouring of the cover. Negan is all in grey, he's colourless, yet the blood is red. In the final pages of the final issue of The Walking Dead, we get some messages from Robert Kirkman, a big thank you to everyone involved. And this is how we knew something to do with Negan was coming. The very last thing that Kirkman said was, P.S. Negan lives. And almost a year later, it is announced that Negan is going to get his own comic issue called Negan Lives. We last saw Negan in The Walking Dead comic issue 193. The final issue. He had not appeared for a while before this issue, as the now older Carl Grimes reads his daughter a book. It's a story of The Walking Dead. As Carl is telling this story, this tale to his daughter, we see almost a montage style, as we see where each of these characters ended up and what they're doing now. It's when Carl says they started to forget who they were. They even started to forget what was good and bad. They only worried about living. There was no time to follow the rules. Almost nobody brushed their teeth or went to sleep by their bedtime. It's then where we see a darkened Negan kneel down to a grave as he rests some flowers on it. This is the grave of his wife Lucille. Negan's wife Lucille died at the very beginning of the apocalypse. She was terminally ill with cancer and she died in a hospital bed and turned. Negan couldn't put her down. That's why he called his barbed-wired bat Lucille. We find this out in Here's Negan, the spin-off showing before the apocalypse and how he came to rise to power for the Saviours during it. This second and final spin-off called Negan Lives will show us the end of his story. The cleverest thing about when we last saw Negan is we don't see his face. This is literally the only appearance he has in the whole issue. Not nearly a quarter of the page, it's just a darkened Negan putting flowers on his wife's grave. The reason we don't see Negan's face is because 25 years have passed since issue 192. Negan wouldn't look like he did. In fact, the Negan we see in the cover is not the current Negan. Like I said, it's the classic Negan. He's in his prime in this picture. And I think that's got something to do with what's actually going to happen within the issue and how it ends. It's important to know that Negan was last seen in issue 174. Before this, Negan promised to fight in the Whisperer War, and in return he wouldn't be locked up, but he would be sent away, he'd be exiled. and from there, after the Whisperer War, he lives in his own outpost in complete isolation. And it's in issue 174 we see how lonely he is and how he's dealing with it. Maggie and Dante find him and he begs Maggie to kill him. Of course, Maggie doesn't do it, however satisfying it would be for her. Negan is just alone with himself and his thoughts, and his wife's makeshift grave. So the spin-off issue, Negan Lives, will be about just Negan. A battle with himself. What he did in the issues between 174 and 193, and I think it will end with an older Negan, and him likely dying. I think that's likely how his story will finish. No character will enter this issue and kill Negan. I'm pretty certain about that. Especially Maggie. She has resisted from doing it all this time. I don't think this spin-off issue would be the time for her to go and do it. I don't think Negan will be killed by any known character. When Negan was in power, he did a lot of bad things, let alone Glenn's death. Ever since he fell from power, it's always been about him being in purgatory, not just when he was in the cell, but when he was exiled, he's still alone, he's in isolation. He's being punished for what he's done by having to live with it. Issue 174 starts with him talking to himself. Negan Lives, I think, will literally be just Negan. And I think at the very end, he'll die of old age in isolation, or he'll die saving someone. The important difference from the comic Negan and the TV Negan is there's a lot less of a human side to the comic Negan. Both make jokes, both are putting on a front, but the comic Negan has that wall up 99% of the time. Negan in the TV show has had it up a lot less, and it's taken a lot less to bring it down. And I've said this loads of times in my videos about how Daryl Dixon indirectly forgave Negan just by sitting down next to him. However, that isn't Negan being treated nicer in the TV show. What that is Daryl stepping up and becoming Rick, just like he has been since season 9. Since Rick left, as we know, Daryl has been playing that part, because there has to be something standing in between Maggie and Negan. Maggie will be exactly like she's been in the comics. She will arrive and want Negan to leave. In the comics, Rick made it clear to Negan that after this Whisperer War, you're leaving. Daryl hasn't said anything like that. He's literally cooking for the people in the hospital. But Maggie's arrival will likely bring over the realism of the hate towards Negan from the comics to the show. I think that's something that needs to happen. Yeah, he redeemed himself, but forgivable and redeemable are different things. Maggie will never forgive Negan. She will never kill Negan. The ending to Negan's story is purgatory. It's living with what he's done. So this issue being called Negan Lives is kind of the point of why Negan's sad. I don't think he wants to live. And that's what I think the fate of Negan is. But bear in mind, Robert Kirkman said Negan is his favourite character. And that was way before we even heard about this new issue. At a panel at New York Comic Con, Robert Kirkman said he tried to kill Negan off 3 times. And all 3 times he could never go through with it. In one of those times, he actually sent it to Charlie Adlard, the illustrator for the comics. And after hearing his shock in his decision to do it, he backpedaled one final time. Negan is Robert Kirkman's favourite character in The Walking Dead. He attempted to kill Negan 3 times but never went through with it. We now have a final issue of The Walking Dead comics with Negan. Has Robert Kirkman thought of the perfect way to end Negan's story? We're about to find out the fate of Negan. But what do you think Negan's fate is? Let me know down below in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure you press the like button. It will help me out and we'll get this video more seen. If you did enjoy it, then make sure you check out my other videos. Check out this video to see who will get Dwight's comic death in the main show. The show is actually pretty near this point, and someone will get it. And of course, if you're looking forward to the season 10 finale, then make sure you check out my most recent video. We talk about all the latest on the release date. We don't actually have the release date yet, it's not the exact day, but I explain the most likely time slot of which it does come out. And of course in today's video we spoke about the tension between Maggie and Negan. If you want to know more of what would happen between them and when she arrives with the Commonwealth, then check out this video. And make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to hear about The Walking Dead and the first to see my videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.